Hello, my name is Dave Lee Travis and welcome to another edition of the Top 10 Auto Show. Each week we take you through our top 10 car categories to find out which car is the class leader as voted for by our Men & Motors panel of experts, who include editors of the top motoring magazines. The panel of experts have awarded points, with the scores adding up to one overall winner in the top 10 category, which for this week is executive and luxury cars. Taking the number 10 position this year is the Vauxhall Amiga. The Amiga has been a familiar sight on our roads for quite a few years now, and despite a few facelifts, it's starting to show its age. In fact, don't be too surprised if we see a replacement for the Amiga in the not-too-distant future. However, styling aside, the Amiga is still a great handling car, with its well-balanced rear-wheel drive chassis delivering a composed and refined drive. Combine that with the large amount of passenger space in the Amiga and you have an excellent executive motorway cruiser. If you're buying the Amiga privately, be prepared for nightmarish depreciation, as your big Vauxhall's value will drop faster than a steam train off a cliff when you drive off the forecourt. The upside of this is that there are some cracking second-hand bargains out there. So, let's now take a look at the manufacturer's facts and figures for the Vauxhall Amiga. And from the manufacturer's figures to those of our expert panel as we see how they've marked the Amiga. In 10th place then, with an average percentage of 55, the Vauxhall Amiga. In at number 9 this year is the curvy Peugeot 607. For those of you who would find the Amiga just a bit too bland, the 607 could well be the answer, as looks-wise it's everything the Amiga isn't. The 607 is also quite refreshing, with its impressive list of standard equipment, which, on the top-spec V6 models, includes satellite navigation, leather seats and metallic paint, and on all models it includes alloys, climate control and a full set of airbags. Out on the road, the Peugeot offers a surprisingly involved drive for what is a big car. Its steering is sharp and responsive and would certainly suit those drivers who like the sporty feel to their cars. Now, whether you actually want that in this type of vehicle, I'm not so sure, as it's almost too involved. Overall then, the Peugeot offers a genuinely different, good-performing package in the executive car market. Let's take a look at the specifications and statistics for the 607. And now let's see how the car has been marked in the top 10 autos categories. In 9th place then, with an average percentage of 57, the Peugeot 607. We're staying with the French as we move on to our 8th place car, as this year it's the Renault Vauxhall Satis that takes this spot. As cars go, let alone executive cars, the Vauxhall Satis is certainly unique in the looks department, and you have to give Renault big credit for going for a style that's new and cutting edge. Whether motorists will be won over by this in the long run, time will tell, but it's always refreshing to see something different on the roads. The exterior styling cues are carried through to the interior of the Vauxhall Satis, and even if you aren't a fan of the exterior looks, you'll be hard-pressed to throw scorn on the interior. Out on the road, the ride of the Vauxhall Satis is aimed more towards comfort rather than sporty performance, with a softly sprung suspension that's excellent on the motorway, but can become a handful if driven with the same level of zealousness as you might the Peugeot 607. Here's the specs then for the Satis. Let's now see how the expert panel have marked the Satis. With an average percentage of 62, the Renault Satis takes this year's 8th place. On to 7th place then, with the BMW 7 Series. Like the Satis we've just seen, BMW have gone for a whole new look for their 7 Series, and it's very far removed from the executive flagships we've seen previously from BMW. Whether on the motorway or on B roads, the 7 Series remains impeccably composed and refined with little wind, road or engine noise. Engine-wise, the car is certainly not for the green at heart, as it's either a 3.6, 4.4 V8 or a massive 6-litre V12. All are extremely smooth and powerful, but all will cost a fortune at the pumps. However, to get poor fuel economy figures, you have to get a car that will start. And in the new 7 Series, getting it fired up is no mean feat. The ignition system, like every other function on the car, is very complicated and requires careful studying of the driver's manual to get you going. Even things like temperature and radio settings require the dexterity of a kung fu master as you work your way through the bizarre iDrive system, following all the instructions on the small screen whilst trying not to plough into the back of the traffic in front of you. Now, this is certainly a high-tech car and an awesome drive, but it's quite possibly too advanced for its own good, which is why it only makes 7th place in our chart. Let's take a look at the specs then for the 7 Series. And from the technical facts and figures to those of our expert panel as we see how they've marked the Beamer. With an average percentage of 67, the BMW 7 Series takes 7th place. In at number 6 this year is another German car. This time it's the Audi A6. Now, unlike the Beamer and the Satis, there's no love them or hate them groundbreaking lines with the A6. Its shape is just pure and simple style that anyone can appreciate. Out on the road, the A6's softly sprung chassis and copious interior makes it an excellent tool for motorway cruising. It's also extremely comfortable, even with 5 passengers, and the space is well thought out, so you still get a good-sized boot. On the power front, the Audi has a superb range of engines in 4, 6 and 8-cylinder guises, as well as a stunning V6 diesel, which is probably the best all-round unit of the bunch. Let's check out the specification then for the A6. And now, here's how our expert panel have scored the car. So, with an average percentage of 68, the Audi A6 takes 6th place. We're into the top 5 now with a Swedish surprise, the Saab 9.5. Now, although Saab have been around for many years, it's definitely not the first brand you think of when it comes to luxury cars. However, If you're after a car that's a little bit different and does let you stand out from the executive crowd, the 9.5 is an excellent choice. From a quality standpoint, the 9.5 is first class. It's solid, well put together, and like the best cars in this class, uses materials that will stand the test of time. The interior is also laid out differently to the majority of cars, which all adds to that feeling of driving something a bit special. And that feeling is carried through to the drive of the car. Although the chassis design isn't the last word in technology, the 9.5 has a superb ride. Across the entire range of cars, the level of standard equipment is impressive both on the comfort and safety fronts. One strange omission though is the lack of traction control on the basic 2 and 2.3 litre cars, as you'd think that's a necessity rather than a luxury. Traction aside though, the 9.5 is every bit a worthy top 5 placing in this year's top 10 of executive and luxury cars. Here are the specifications then for the Saab 9.5. And from the technical facts and figures to the scores of the Men and Motors panel. With the percentages averaged out, the 9.5 gets a total of 71. That's it for part 1 of Top 10 Executive and Luxury Cars. Join us after the break when we reveal the top 4 cars. Hello and welcome back to the Top 10 Auto Show, where this week we're running down the top 10 executive and luxury cars. And straight in at number 4, it's the all-new VW Phaeton. Now before you start ringing in, we haven't made a mistake. This isn't a Passat Honest. Although you'd be forgiven for thinking it was, as the looks of VW's top-flight executive motor are very similar to its smaller brother. In fact, the Phaeton is a completely new car, which will also become the basis for the new Audi A6, which is out later this year. Being all new, the Phaeton is packed with high-tech features including draft-free air conditioning, self-leveling suspension, and adaptive damping. As you'd expect from a car with such a high-tech suspension system, the ride of the Phaeton is superb. It's refined, composed and solid at all speeds, and with the bigger engines, it would think nothing of batting down the autobahns at 150 miles an hour, keeping its 5 occupants comfortable and relaxed. So from a big car to its big statistics. We know it's in third place, but let's see how our expert panel have scored the Phaeton in each of the categories. With an average percentage of 72, the VW Phaeton. Watch out Mercedes for next year's chart. But for this year, they're safe, as in at number 3 is the Mercedes E-Class. For a company that became famous for building top-quality big cars, it's no surprise that the new Mercedes E-Class makes the top 3 in this year's chart. This latest version of the E-Class takes all of the best features of the previous model and improves on them. On the old model, the interior was one of its poorest features, and that's changed on the new car. It's still a mass of black materials here, but it's more curvaceous and well thought out than the last car, and it doesn't feel as somber. That Mercedes attention to detail is carried through to the tarmac with a very impressive ride. The new car is also more responsive than the old model, with much sharper steering and handling, and for such a big car, the amount of driver feedback is impressive. So let's take a look at the all-important facts and figures for the Mercedes E-Class. So how did it score? Well, let's find out with the expert panel's marks for the E-Class. With an average percentage of 76, the Mercedes E-Class takes third place. So, the big question, what's at number 1? Well, one car that isn't is another Mercedes, this time the S-Class. As an iconic luxury car, the Mercedes S-Class has it all. The subtle styling, the awesome build quality, and all topped off with one of the most famous car badges in the world. From the moment the keyless entry system allows you access to your S-Class so you can hear the solid thud as the door closes, you know you're in a very special motor car. You can pretty much forget the optional extras list for the S-Class, as even the entry-level model comes with all you would ever need and more. Metallic paint, automatic box, climate control, leather seats and electric everything. In fact, there's probably more electric motors in an S-Class than you'd find in a Scalextric factory. Yes, the S-Class is one very impressive car, and that's before you've driven it. But once you do get into it and out on the road, the biggest thing you will notice is how nimble the car feels. It's surprisingly agile for such a big car, and even around busy streets the S-Class feels at home, and it gives you the impression it's a much smaller car than it is. The pricing of this Mercedes is also quite impressive, as you can get into the S-Club for just under 45 grand, which will get you that 2.8 V6 model we mentioned earlier. Here's those all-important stats for our number 2 car. And from the technical stats to those of our panel of experts, as we see how they've marked the S-Class in our top 10 auto show categories. It was only 2 points off, but with 77%, the S-Class takes second place. So, what is at number 1? We'll find out shortly, but first, here's a quick recap from 10 to 2. In at 10 is the Vauxhall Amiga. At number 9 is Peugeot's 607. Taking 8th place this year is Renault's Satis. At number 7 is the BMW 7 Series. Taking 6th place is the Audi A6. Just making the top 5 is the Saab 9.5. At number 4 is VW's Phaeton. Third place goes to the Mercedes E-Class, and the Mercedes S-Class takes second. Which means, yet again, it's another top place for BMW, this time with their 5 Series. Like its bigger brother, the 7 Series, the 5 Series is quality on 4 wheels, but where it wins out is that BMW haven't been too clever with the car. Yes, it is high-tech, and yes, its cockpit lights up like a fighter plane at night, but overall, it's a much more traditional and classically stylish car both inside and out. Whether BMW change this when the new 5 Series comes out, though, remains to be seen. Like the S-Class, the more you drive the 5 Series, the smaller the car seems to get, and you feel really confident threading it through inner city traffic. Get it up to speed on the motorway, and it's a superbly balanced car with near-perfect steering and ride, and though the rear is a little cramped in comparison with some of the bigger cars in our top 10, it's a really comfortable long-range cruiser. However, jump off the slip road and onto a B road, and the 5 Series is just as impressive, and it'll give you a rewarding and involved drive to all standards of driver. However, if you do get your rear-wheel drive 5 Series out of shape, there's electronic safety devices galore to keep you out of the hedges. So, let's have a look at the specifications for our top-placed 5 Series. We know it's the number one car, but let's see how our expert panel have marked the car. With an average percentage of 79, it's the BMW 5 Series that is this year's number one.
Good evening, I'm Rob Ovens, Managing Director of Men & Motors, and I'm delighted to be here at BMW with their Marketing Director Phil Horton to present him with the award for the top executive and luxury car, the BMW 5 Series, as chosen by our panel of top experts. Well done, Phil.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. That's great. I mean, in a way, it doesn't come as a surprise. I mean, this car, which is a fantastic car, it's the heart of the BMW range. It's what we're really known for. So it's fantastic to get another award, and thanks very much.
So well done once again to BMW for another first place in our Top 10 Auto Show. I'm Dave Lee Travis. Thanks for watching, and do join me again soon for more Top 10 Autos.